Yeah.
All right, thank you everyone for being here. I asked Lois Reynolds to say prayer for us.
Oh, gracious Father, we come to you this afternoon. We just want to thank you for just the opportunity to coming together and meeting, Father. Father, we just ask for your presence to be here, Father God, to be among us, protect everyone represented here and on Zoom, Father. So, Father, like always, we just thank you for your presence through Jesus, our precious Savior. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may have a seat. We've got 3 new people here today. We've got applications for them all. Janie Cox, Lois Reynolds, and our speaker, Kevin Hearn. We've got all their applications. Hopefully soon we can have, our initiation and everything as soon as we find that donkey for everyone to All right. Roll call. We've got 8 members here today. Thank you everyone for coming out. And if you'll watch your emails after each Zoom meeting, after each meeting, I try to send out kind of announcements if in case anyone who wasn't able to come, I try to put the announcements. And then I've been putting our Zoom meetings in there where people can still watch them if they have to miss a meeting. So, because we understand, we're trying to social distance too. Everyone's doing great out there right now. All right, announcements. I did speak with the eye doctor, and I went blank on her name, with Dr. Duff. Anyone think that? I have her car outside. I invited her today to our meetings. She thought that was great, which of course today was a little short notice. She was very excited and wants to start coming. She mentioned she's on one of the vision boards that they have, and they have an event coming up in October. And so she said they're going to be doing free screenings, and I'm not sure she's going to give me more information. I got her email and her phone number. She's going to give me more information on it. I don't know if they're going to be helping people provide classes as well, but she thought we would be a great place to start since I also picked up a whole bunch of used glasses from her today. No one's going and picking those up. So I don't know who is, but I told her she can call me. I'd be happy to go pick them up. We've got
all the boxes.
Yeah. She's, so I picked those up and I'll just keep them all together. But yeah, she thought since we get the applications, if we ever have anyone that was not approved for the application, maybe this is an event that we can let them know about and share with them. They were going to open it up to the public, but with COVID, she thought, maybe we don't want a whole bunch of people here at once. And so if we can come up with some names for, they're going to help them get glasses, or I know the vision screening for sure. She's going to get me more information on that. Let's see. Does anyone have any other announcements? I do have Cowboy Cadillac tickets as well, Mike, if you would like some. I stopped by your office yesterday.
I'll get some at the end of the meeting, because I wasn't here last Wednesday. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. All right, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce, and I forgot to get a bio because it was kind of a last minute change of programs here, our new police chief, Kevin Hearn.
Take this off to some mistake, at least 6 feet away from me. I'll go. Distance will be easier. I think better for them to hear me. I appreciate y'all inviting me today. Jerry invited me close to a year ago, and we was going, and COVID hit, and COVID's been rough on the lines. It's been rough on the police department. It's been rough on the city. Back in March, we all was afraid we were going to die, and then in June and July, we're like, we got to get back outside and do things and go to school. And the biggest things for us with COVID is in the city right now is the mask mandate. We're going to have another meeting tomorrow night, council meeting on that. Tomorrow night's meeting, they're going to try to take the $100 fine out of it because they passed it a month ago with a fine. The mayor didn't want the fine to be in there. but passed without an emergency clause and due to the charter in the city, it's 30 days before it can go into effect. So tomorrow night, they're gonna try to pass a clause to take the fine out, or basically pass a new ordinance without the fine. If it passes with an emergency clause, then it goes into effect immediately, as soon as the mayor signs it, which will be tomorrow night. If it passes and they don't do the emergency clause, then Sunday, the original one, goes into effect, and 30 days from Thursday, the fine goes away. So, but we're not, the police department's not worried about running around finding people for not wearing a mask. We got more important things to do than that right now. Debbie texted me the night. I thought, well, I'll just put together a few things, little differences between 2019, 2020 up to today. How busy we've been, or how things have kind of slowed down actually, for the most part. Like I said, the virus has really hit us hard. Last week I had 8 officers under quarantine. Luckily, knock on wood, we haven't had any positive tests in the McAlester Police Department. I've had a total of 10 officers quarantined, one of them quarantined 2 different times. But the first one ended up being a false deal. It was bogus. So after he got tested, he came back to work. But every time I quarantine somebody, it's 14 days. CDC guidelines says if you're exposed to somebody, it's 14 days from the day of exposure. And if you have a symptom and you test positive, it's only 10 days. But so every time they get us, it's 14 days. At one time we had 8. We're down. One of them come back to work today. I had 2 come back last week, 1 come back today. I got 1 tomorrow, 1 Friday. And by next Monday, I should have them all back with 2. So we don't lose anybody. And the weekends is what gets us. Everybody gets exposed to somebody on the weekends. But only 2 exposures have been on duty. The rest of them have all been by family members on duty. One day you're with your dad, the next day your dad gets up and he's got a stomach bug and he's throwing up, and he goes and gets tested and he tests positive. So it's going to happen. We're not I can't quarantine my people away from their parents and their wives and their children and stuff. But anyway, some of the numbers went over. Back in 2019, we had 45 sworn police officers. Today we've got 39. We had 3 support staff. Today we got 2. We don't have an animal control, but we actually posted an opening for an animal control officer last Friday. So if you know anybody that's interested in being an animal lover and being interested in helping us out, we would love to look at their application. We got a couple of good candidates that we hope that's going to apply. But anyway, we're hoping to fill that one really soon. And that's been a big contention at the council meeting. It seems like every week somebody brings it up at a council meeting in their little closing remarks. One of the council members will bring it up about our animal control officer. It's important to get one back. So we're hoping getting back next couple of weeks. Calls for service, things like that, things that we usually do when you call the police department and an officer is going to show up, come talk to you. Now, most of the time, that's going to be on the phone. We're just going to call you back unless there's a reason to meet you face to face. And there is a lot of those where we still go out face to face, but if not, we're going to do it by the phone. Our police cars now are happening to Gary. They're basically mobile offices. They got everything they need. They got cell phones, they got Wi-Fi, they got computers. They can do everything but print in there. And some of them, we had a couple guys that got printers set up in their cars, just little hot spots. But anyway, some of the differences last year up to today, we had like working accidents. We worked like 254 accidents. Well, this year we've only worked 204. So it's like down about 20%, 19-20%. I assume that's probably because there's just not near as many people driving around. You know, you can drive down the highway on a Saturday, and I moved into Kincaid a few months ago, and it was always hard to get across there. And I mean, it's 5 o'clock in the evening. Sometimes I'll have to wait for a few cars to go by, but most of the time you just pull up and go. There's not that much traffic out there. Our arrests and violations, last year at this time, we'd arrested 963 people. We threw 963 people in jail. Today, it's 556. So, I mean, it dropped 42%. People just are behaving some. Yeah, and some of it is, we're not out there actively looking for it near as much as we were. I mean, we're in the neighborhoods and driving around, especially at nighttime. But even if we run across somebody that's maybe a little susceptible, it's get out of here as opposed to just throwing them back in the car and taking them to jail. Because the last thing we want is somebody to get COVID in the jail. Because, it's like a nursing home. If it gets in there, it's hard to get it out, and it's going to hurt a lot of people. Our calls for service, though, hadn't really changed much. Calls for service last year at this time, we had 18,300. Now we're at 17,700. That was only down like 3%. So we're staying about as busy on the calls. It's just not as serious a calls. Incident reports, if you call and somebody breaks into your car or whatever, we'll do a report on that. Any kind of crime we'll do a report on. We also do reports for found property, things like that also. Those have dropped 27%. Citations has dropped 29%. Last year at this time, we wrote 6,300 citations. This year it's only like 44. So, but for March and April, when we all was afraid of the COVID, we wouldn't let our guys make traffic stops, basically, unless it was just a sure enough safety issue. And we didn't really let them start writing until like the last week of May. Since then, they got social distance. We got it to where they can do it non-contact. Take a picture of your driver's license or scan your driver's license. Our phone can scan the back of your driver's license with a barcode on there, and it'll bring up all your information. So you don't have to touch your hands. You don't have to touch our guys. Some of them will wear their masks. Some of them don't. I don't make it mandatory that they wear their mask when they're doing a traffic stop, because it's pretty awkward. But they are wearing their mask anytime they can't social distance, whether it's on a call for service or taking a report or whatever. The guys are wearing masks. They've all got their PPE. We've got gowns, gloves, N95 mask. Have to carry around the car now. I guess it's gonna be the way of life for now. On a good note, though, like I say, the arrests and stuff are down. Our reports of like domestic violence has gone down 15%. And I was talking to the district attorney and some of the domestic violence people the other day, the advocates, that we don't know if that's true. People have just been nicer and getting along. Usually that ain't the case when people are cooped up together. Maybe it's just people are afraid to call us now because they don't have any other option. If you're quarantined in the house with your husband or your wife and you're not getting along and you can't leave, you can't go anywhere, well, normally you might be able to go to your mom's house, now you can't. It made it not just be calls, but we have seen a decrease. Last year we made 65 domestic calls, arrests on domestic calls, and this year we made 55 arrests on domestic calls at the same time. Again, burglaries are way down. Last year was really high for burglaries, though. We had a lot of people going around town breaking into everybody's cars, and we put a stop to that probably about October, November last year. It really slowed down. Our night shift got really active. One of them even went out and bought his own infrared unit so he could put it on his car. I mean, you can't hide from one of them at nighttime. That really shut them down. So it was a little bit skewed because we're down like 47% in burglaries in McAlester this year, which is a good sign. Usually you can kind of tell how the crime rate is in McAlester or any town, what the drugs are like in McAlester or any other town based on the burglaries, because people are going to steal stuff to get their drugs or whatever. And I attended a class the other day, and they said after Proposition 800, 801, whatever went through, legalizing, making misdemeanors of basically all drugs and misdemeanor of all larcenies and burglaries, that they had polled like the 6 biggest retailers in Oklahoma, and their shoplifting had gone up like 30%, or their larcenies had gone up about 30%. For us, our shoplifting has gone up. That's the only crime stat that I could find that actually went up this year over last year, and it only went up 8%. So it's not as bad as if they're all reporting or not. Like I think it was the owner of Quick Trip came out, talked about their headquarters being in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they're the #1 theft place in the state or in the nation for Quick Trip. They lose more stuff in Oklahoma than they do anywhere else. But for the department, moving forward, we're in the process of hiring at least one more person to get us back to at least 40. We're hoping to get back to 45, but that's going to be a little ways down the road. But we're in the process. We're doing the hiring process, and to hire a police officer, it takes a while. Obviously, we have to take applications, and then we make them take a physical test, and we put them through physical testing, then we make them take an intelligence test. So, it's not really an IQ test, but just kind of common knowledge test. Once we get through that, then we'll our next phase, which will be a week after next, we're going to do some captains will interview them. We'll do a background investigation on them, and then if they haven't already taken one, we'll do some psychological testing on them, send them to a psychologist to do an MMPI test, and then hopefully get somebody on next month or two, get somebody on, so we'll be back up to 40. We feel a lot better when we got 40 officers. It just makes us feel safer. It makes the city feel safer. We don't like to be this low, but we've had retirements this year. We've had a few officers go to other departments. A couple went to Highway Patrol. One went to the Shot Call Nation. Shot Calls are actively out recruiting everybody now since the McGirt case came down, but we're trying to hold on to what we got. Add one more, animal control officer. About 6 years ago, we bought body cams. 2014, we was one of the first. We was the first one in this area to get body cams, to outfit our whole department with body cams. One of the first in the state, and we love our body cams. The guys were pretty apprehensive at first. Now it's they don't like being without it. And if you know technology, 6-year-old technology is like having a 20-year-old car. You know, it's going to break down. It's going to fall apart. You're going to have to do things to fix it. And you can't fix these things. You got to throw them away and get a new one. And we can't afford to get those anymore. So we actually got a grant, awarded a grant to get new body cams. It was a 50-50 matching grant. We did it back when Gary was still chief. We're in the final stages of that. We've got a conference next week. We've got to go on. Then we're hoping to take our proposal to the council maybe the first week of September. We've got bids in from a couple of different companies. We've narrowed it down to the one that we wanted. We can buy it off state bid. We think we could do that. We won't have to do the bid process and do all three. But anyway, we're hoping to get new body cams in the next. When we order them, they make them as we order them. They don't just keep a bunch of them in the warehouse because, like I say, technology updates all the time. So we're hoping to have them on by October. Have everybody have a new body cam. One of the sales pitches that they always use on a body cam, they're expensive, but they're not as expensive as a lawsuit. And we've had a few that the body cam saved us. Once the guys saw that, when I was captain on day shift, I would be the guy that they'd call if you got a ticket on the highway and you got mad at the guy and the officer, you want to call and complain. Well, I was the guy that would take the complaint. And before we had the body cams, I would take complaints 2-3 times a week. And people would want to talk about, he was rude or he was crude or he said this or, he just did that. But once we got the body cams, you start telling them, he's got a body cam on. I'll download his video. I'll watch his video and I'll call you back. 9 times out of 10, it's, well, I don't really want to get anybody in trouble or, I don't want to file a complaint. It's just, most of the time it's just they want somebody to vent to. And that's fine. We can listen to that. But don't be making stuff up. And our complaints have really, really gone down. Of course, when the guy's wearing a body cam, he knows he's wearing a body cam too, so he's going to watch what he says, and he's going to, do what he'd do when the supervisor's there watching him because he knows that they're able to watch it. But anyway, we're hopeful we're going to get those in the next 60 days or so. That'll really, really help the department because the ones we got now are they're falling apart. We got some that you can't hardly see the video when you watch it, but you can hear them, and that's better than nothing. So we got guys carrying those. We try to move them around and get the most active guys the best body cameras, and my captains, they don't do a whole lot of actual police work. They do more administrative stuff, so they don't need a body cam for administrative stuff. So we've taken them away from all of our captains and given them the guys that are out here, feet on the ground. Our union and our city still negotiating on a contract. We're hoping that's going to come pretty soon. Hopefully hopefully this week or next week, they'll come together. That's always a big morale boost in the department when at least you have the contract signed and you know you're good for another year. You know, nobody's going to take anything away from you or anything like that. I mean, I'm not going to take anything anyway, but some of these youngsters, they don't understand that. And I understand. I was them one time, so we're hopeful that that's going to come pretty soon. As soon as we get that done, we've probably 4 years ago, we started working on our policy management system. Our policies are pretty antiquated and just paper and 3-ring binders, you know, and sometimes you can't find them in a 3-ring binder, and one binder's got it, one don't. But anyway, we're going to an internet-based system, and we basically had to go through and rewrite every policy we had for that internet-based system, and it had, remember how many policies in there?
No, but it's 700 and some pages.
Yeah. Well, it was 3-ring binders just for the one, just because there's a lot of policies in there that we didn't have, and some are mandated by the state, some mandated by federal, and some are just, you know, good practice. So we've got that, and it's been in the hands of the FOP, or in the hands of the union, so we can get together and try to tweak, make it to where it works for all of us. And once they get through with their contract, and we'll be able to get into that. Hopefully we're going to have that implemented by the end of the year. And it comes with an app on their phone. All of our officers have city cell phones that the city pays for. Their iPhone, I think 11s. They're the big ones, but they're the ones that it's face recognition. You have to use your fingerprints, so you can use it with your gloves on and everything now. We went to FirstNet, AT&T, and it's been really great for our officers. But anyway, there'll be an app on there, so they'll have all the policies with them. You know, all you got to do if you got a question, you can pull it up. And if a supervisor needs to, you know, correct somebody or educate somebody out in the field, you know, you don't have to go back to the station to find the big blue book. You can just, right there on the spot, you can clip it, email it to them, text it to them, whatever. They're good to go. So that's going to get us kind of more into the 21st century. We've been working on that for a few years now, and we've got that ready. We got 6 new patrol cars coming. That'll be the Ford Explorers, like the black ones you see running around town now. We're getting 6 more of those. The guys are really excited about those. Some of the young guys, they like driving the Chargers. The old guys, they like driving the Explorers. They're just more comfortable, easier to set in. They're all-wheel drive, so if it ever snows again, we don't have to worry about not being able to get around in town. First year I had mine, back, I think it was 13 or 14. We had snow, and shoot, I was pushing people up the hill there by the hospital, just no problem, never slipped. I think that was the last year that I had to use it in the snow. But they are good. They are really good vehicles. Those Fords are good vehicles. I've never been a big Ford fan until Sam, but the Explorer is a good police car. And for us especially, you know, we don't have to ride 120 miles an hour on the highway. You know, we're driving around town, and it's a lot more comfortable. It's a lot easier on your back, a lot easier on your knees. Getting out of those cars every cop gets a knee replacement sooner or later, I think. The next biggest thing, I guess, for us outside of COVID is the McGirt case. They come down, Supreme Court made a ruling where now we all live in the Choctaw Reservation. It's just the Choctaw Nation now. So we're still trying to figure out exactly how that's going to work for us. There's laws out there that is going to change the way we do police work, where we can prosecute somebody. Some things we can still prosecute at courthouse here in Pittsburgh County. Some things will have to go to Durant, and some things will go to Muskogee to the federal court. And it hasn't applied to Pittsburgh County yet or the Choctaw Nation yet, but they're telling us just to assume that it does. That's what the feds are telling us. Just go ahead and assume that it does, even though we're not filing them yet. It's before you could get a felony to court, it would be in the federal system. So we're working with them, trying to get everything worked out, working with the Choctaw Nation. They've been real good, real forthcoming with their information that they know. They're like us. A lot of their stuff, every time I talk to their chief, or not their chief, They have directors. They only have one chief in the nation, and then everybody else is a director. But they're director of law enforcement. When I talk to him, he talks to the attorneys, and they're still just getting questions. You know, they're not getting a lot of answers yet. So that's going to be exciting for us because it's going to be something new. We're all cross-deputized. All of our officers are cross-deputized with the Choctaw Nation, so we can enforce any of the laws. We'll take them to the county jail just like we always have. It may not go to Pittsburgh County. It may go to the Choctaw Nation where we may have to go to the federal system. But that's the biggest thing that we've got to deal with. It's still kind of an unknown, but we're like everything else, we're just having to move forward on it. If anybody's got any questions, go ahead. Yes.
I have two questions. Why do you believe, Chief, that there's been a reduction in force where you've lost these 5 or 6 officers in the last year?
Well, we had 2 retire. Both of them had well over 30 years. I had 2 that went to Highway Patrol. That was always their dream, to be a Highway Patrol. Some people just like to wear the brown shirt. I had one that went to the Choctaw Nation, and they just basically offer more money, and he's a young man with little kids at home, and you know, $100 is $100.
Now that's important, but this was just normal attrition.
Just normal attrition. One of the guys that went to Highway Patrol actually quit Highway Patrol and came back. We hired him back. But then Jeremy Busby, since then, went to work for the health department. They created a new law enforcement position over there. And me and him actually went to the academy together. So he had 25 years in. He was our school resource officer. And so and 25 years is the number that everybody wants to get to retire in the state pension, or in our police pension. And he'd had his 25 and a half years in. His wife worked at the health department. It was just a better deal for him, better fit for him and his kids. So, you know.
Well, that's good. I wish all these men missed. I have one other question. With regard to the first murder that was committed here in McAlester on New Year's Day, where the young person driving the taxi was murdered, I haven't kept up on that, but was an individual ever charged for that crime yet?
No, nobody's been arrested. We've had a couple of possible suspects that have been ruled out. We've had several possible suspects that have been ruled out. They're still actively working the case. Obviously, it's a little slower, 6, 7 months out, 8 months out of it now. But there is a suspect, but it's just one of those things that you just got to get all your T's crossed, your I's dotted, and wait for them to kind of make another mistake before you can do anything,
Well, thank you for the update. I was just very interested in that. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, how's the constitutional carry impacting your work in the PD?
Very little. Very little. When we first went to open carry, when we first went to concealed carry back in the day, we all, had 2 or 3 little problems. Then we went to open carry where you didn't, everybody's like, this is going to this end of the world. I think we might have made 2 calls. And constitutional carry now, I don't know that we've ever made a call on anybody on a constitutional carry. For 2 or 3 weeks, you'll see a lot of people walking downtown with guns. And then everybody realizes, man, it hurts my back. Or every time I sit down, I hit myself in the ring. It takes a while to get used to carrying a gun. And they put them back up. And that just goes away.
2 questions. Has the pandemic really helped or hurt your budget because sales tax goes down?
The pandemic cut my budget in half by 20%, or cut my budget by 20% off of that. That was before Gary left. That's the reason we haven't gone back up to 45, is because of the budget cuts. That being said, with the stimulus money that was put out there, March and April, when the money come in for March and April, which have been April and May, the city's budget was short $2 million after being ahead of our projections all the way up through February. So they had to revise the budget, for the 2020, 2021, and they cut it way back. That being said, we have, July and August, we have beaten the projections. We've actually beaten in sales tax revenue what we did July and August of 2019. So as long as It's looking good. That is good numbers, but can we project that out for the rest of the year? No. If the Democrats and Republicans get together and they get another stimulus package going, I can't see any reason why our revenue won't be as good as it was. And as revenue comes back, then we're going to bring people back here. We furloughed 61 people in the city of McAlester. No police officers were furloughed because we'd lost people on our own. We didn't need to be furloughed, but almost all of those have been brought back. Some of them decided they didn't want to come back. They took retirement, or during the furloughs, they went and found other jobs, because when they wasn't getting paid, we were still paying their insurance and keeping them up to date on that. But some of them went out, that wasn't good enough for them. They wanted to go find another job, and they did. So we brought back almost all the full-timers that were eligible to come back. The city has brought back. So we're going to hire an animal control officer hopefully this month, and that was a retirement from during the COVID when it first hit. Instead of furloughing him, he retired. He took the early retirement and he left. So we're going to get that one back. So hopefully in the next few months we'll be able to start seeing this light at the end of the tunnel, where they'll say we can put on a few more, because like I say, we're doing interviews not next week but the week after, and there's a couple of good candidates in there, but unfortunately most of them aren't CLIC certified, which means they'll have to go to an academy, and the next academy I can get somebody in February, so I can't do a whole lot with you until I get to the academy.
Okay, the last, when you're talking about moving into the 21st century and so forth like that with your body cam, is there a body cam that will let you have live feed as if you're making the arrest, if the monitor, and so like?
There are some out there that do that, and we actually looked at one.
I can see that.
It's not enough. It's not,
because sometimes it's too late to look at the camera.
the body cams that we're getting, you can't do that. But there are some out there that you can, the chief can sit in his office, and if he knows there's a pursuit going on or foot pursuit or something, and he can bring it on, you can actually see where they're at, what they're doing through your computer. We're probably going to go with a company called GTAC. They make the computers and stuff that the military uses in Afghanistan, Iraq, wherever, overseas. Everybody I've ever talked to that spent any time in either Afghanistan or Iraq really brag on GTAC. So that's probably the company we're going to go with that makes the body cam, because they're military grade. And they have GPS, so we can actually track where you're at. We can't just slip in and see you, because then you have to have it has to be hooked up to cellular too, just like your phone. The company that I saw that does do that, basically, instead of making a body cam, what they do is they just buy a Samsung phone, but they're just a dummy phone. They're not sold to US Cellular or anybody, and then the hardware's already there, and then they just put their programming on it and turn it into a body cam. But the problem with carrying a Samsung phone on your chest is nobody wants to do that, and so they have to make special brackets for it, and they're obviously 4 or 5 times more expensive than everything else on the market. They are state of the art, and they replace the phones every time they upgrade it. Whatever Samsung's into now, 11, 12, whatever, and they'll upgrade it. It's a real neat picture. You can check right in, and it uploads right to the cloud. Every few seconds it'll send so many bits up to the cloud to where it's being captured and retained right while you're watching it, or while it's recording. For ours, basically, you have to come back to the station and put them in a dock, and then in that dock we have our own server, so we'll save it on our own server.
You said at one time if they're in a higher risk area, they get better body cams. And I was just thinking that if it could have a camera on the cruiser, that the captain could be monitoring through the situation, it's far better to send more help before it's needed than to wait till afterward.
Oh yeah, definitely is. And in McAlester, usually on our shift, we'll have 6 or 7 officers working at any one given time. Sometimes maybe as many as 8 or 9. But what I'm saying, the people that get the body cams right now, because we're running short, is the guys that are actually working, the guys that are actually out there answering the calls, or the guys we work with body cams. Like I say, a captain, if we're shorthanded, he's going to answer some calls, but he'll answer 5 to 10 calls a week, where a patrolman will answer, 15 or 20 a day. So we want that guy that's going to be running into the public, maybe making an arrest, helping children, whatever. He's going to be out there doing that, where the captain is more likely going to be answering questions and doing payroll and taking care of this administrative deal or this, where my deputy chief is real good about getting the captains to go do things for him all the time. So they don't need a whole lot of body cams for that. And I mean, I'd love for them all to have a body cam, but that's just not, it's not feasible. And hopefully, like I say, we'll solve that by hopefully the 1st of October.
When you and I are talking here, you want to tell the group what you've been experiencing on the way of public gratitude.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, but I didn't write that down. But anyway, in McAlester, we've got a really, really good community. Since George Floyd in Minneapolis, shootings in Atlanta, we've had a real outpouring of support for the police department. My guys, we already had the COVID, so they wasn't allowed to come to the station hardly at all through March and April. And then we started letting them come back in May a little bit, social distance, and you know how it is. I don't care what organization you are. You make a rule hard and fast today, we're going to follow this by God. Well, then next week we follow it kind of sort, and in 2 weeks nobody's doing, so it kind of gets that away everywhere. But so there was the morale was kind of down anyway, because everybody's out in their car and they're not being able to socialize with each other at all. So we started letting them get back in there, and then the deal in Minneapolis happened, and all the protests and all the defund the police departments, and they read that and they see that on Yahoo, and we all subscribe to different police magazines and stuff, and every one of them has articles on it, and then they'll send it to us. So, but in McAlester, it's really not that way. Like I was telling you, I walk in Walgreens and just 70-year-old women will come up and give you a hug and just tell you, thank you for your service and want you to pass it along. And, she tells you every time I see a cop, I try to give them a hug. Or we get fruit baskets. If you want to send food to the police department, send fruit baskets. We have plenty of donuts at the police department. Trust me, I walk in 5 days a week, and 3 of those, there'll be a couple dozen donuts sitting there. And everybody loves donuts, but it's a little cliche. Our guys don't need that many donuts. Send a fruit basket. Most of them would appreciate it, because especially on day shift, because they're all 40 and over. The donuts hit them harder than it does the young guys. Eat them donuts all night. It doesn't matter. With our older guys, we try to stay away from the donuts unless we just, it's a special occasion. But a couple of different churches in town have sent gift certificates. Send a card with the box of the gift certificates for the guys. First Baptist Church done it. 831 Church, some numbers like that. They did it, and our guys really, really appreciate that, because most of them have to eat out. If they don't live within a 6-mile radius of the city limits, then they have no choice but to eat out. But that's another thing. Even during the COVID, I don't let the 2 people go eat together. There's no more 4 people sitting at the table to eat. We have to be of social distance. And most of our restaurants, the tables, you can put one on one side, one on the other, on opposite ends. So I'm not letting the 2 go at a time. But yeah, the support from McAlester has been really, really, really good. So, and they know it. Yes, ma'am.
If they take off the $50 or the $100 fine, what are the consequences for breaking that ordinance?
Basically, it's the same. We're not going to give you a fine. We wouldn't going to write you a ticket for not wearing your mask anyway. I can't imagine a time where that would be needed. What we do is, when Walmart and Lowe's, a month ago, they put in their mandates that you had to wear a mask inside their store. So we went out and talked to them and asked them what they wanted us to do, if they wanted any help with it, if they thought we could. So for the first few days, we just had somebody in the neighborhood, just in case. The first week, we had 3 calls at Walmart. 2 of them were people standing outside berating the people going in and wearing their masks, telling them how stupid they were for wearing masks, or telling the lady that she doesn't have the right to tell them to wear a mask. And one actually assaulted the lady, telling her she had to put on a mask. And it was a little lady that slapped her on the arm a couple of times. And they didn't report that until the next day. But really, what we'll enforce is if they tell you you either have to wear a mask or leave, and you refuse to leave, well, now you're trespassing. So we'll cite you for trespassing, we'll load you up, take you to jail, or write you a ticket and send you down the road. Or if you're disturbing the peace, then, you know, if you're causing a scene, then you'll be asked to leave, and if you don't leave, you'll be cited for taken to jail for disturbing the peace or trespassing. And that's pretty much the way we would handle it. Whether there's a fine on there or not, that's, to us, that's more of an important deal. If you're harassing somebody, then we're gonna deal with that. If you're walking down the street without your mask on, we're definitely not gonna stop and talk to you. We're gonna, if anybody calls in and complains that they saw you walking down the street without a mask on, we're gonna tell them we got, you know, more important things to deal with.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't really have a question, but I think this is pretty new information. Last week, I talked to Keister with the U.S. Attorney's Office and Bureau of Indian Affairs, and so the Bossy case, which is out of McLean County, I think, is the case that kind of sets the footprint of what it's going to look like for the rest of the tribes. And they are expecting that answer from the Supreme Court around Thanksgiving. They're expecting that answer to be the same.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we could see that come back as quick as Thanksgiving.
Well, we got our Sizemore case from Krebs is at the state Court of Appeals now. And Sizemore is not a member of the Choctaw Nation tribe, but he is eligible to be a member. That's all you got to be. He's Native American. And his appeal went up to them like in January, February, and they knew McGirt was coming. So they said they would not rule on it until then. And we thought once this come down, they would make the ruling, and that would make Choctaw Nation fall under McGirt. And but it hasn't happened yet. But it's just time. We know it's coming. It was legally, it was the right thing to do. The federal law says that a state cannot try an Indian for committing a crime on Indian land, or cannot try a white person or a non-Indian for committing a major crime against an Indian on Indian land. And that's always been in the Constitution before there was a state of Oklahoma, and Congress dropped the ball and never dissolved the boundaries of any of the 5 civilized tribes reservations. On the state's side, in 1907, 1908, 1909, there wasn't enough Indian courts to try people, and people wasn't getting justice. So they stepped in and just started just kind of picking up the slack. And then it just became the way to do things. It never was legal. But it was the way it was getting done. It was getting done okay. So everybody's kind of, well, that old adage, well, that's the way we've always done it. And we've always done it that way. So that just made it okay. Well, the Supreme Court the other day said, no, it's not okay. So.
Yeah, and another thing that came out in that meeting that you guys, I mean, because these guys are going to take the heat for this, but right now there is 8 attorneys and 4 judges that are hearing all these cases. So right now they're just focusing on major crimes, your homicides and stuff. Your property crimes,
It's going to be like it always has been in the federal system.
it's going to get really scary because the criminals out there are starting to figure it out. So you people that's landowners and business owners and these guys are going to take a real big hit because you are going to get complaints, you know, and if you're not doing your job, and they are, just their hands will be tied.
In the federal system, if we take somebody to federal court, the federal system, everybody has to go through a grand jury, and they have to be indicted. And when they're indicted, they have 90 days to go to trial. In the state, we do have grand juries, but you don't have to go to grand jury. We can do an affidavit, we can swear out a warrant and throw you in jail. And then it's kind of up to the judge and the DA and the defense attorney on when they go to court. You know, they said it, oh, we're going to go, and they just you can kick the can down the road for a couple of years if you want to. In the federal system, they'll give you one extension beyond that 90 days, and then the judge is going to throw it out because of the speedy trial. And
Either of you have any insight on the negotiations between the Oklahoma Attorney General and the tribe?
And the tribes? No, I haven't. Like I say, I've talked to John Hobbs and I've talked to R.D. Hendricks down at the Choctaw Nation a few times. And, you know, they're asking, they're telling us, you know, they'll help or ask us for help. And we got all the paperwork brought up to date on our cross deputization, you know. I made sure that we all had a copy of it and actually got one for a few of the other agencies here in Pittsburgh County, so they would know that they had one, because, you know, I think Jim Lyles and Kevin Priddle signed ours, you know, and neither one of them are with the city anymore. So, but anyway, we got that under control. But they're still asking lots of questions, and they don't have a lot of answers yet neither. So,
Get it on. What's the man told me that last week ago?
Yeah.
A little closer. We got the kitchen in the background.
Oh,
It was a.
I'm smiling, I can't tell you.
I know. Oh.
I can't talk about it.